Do you want to know how you can improve your accuracy from this to this? Well, you're at the right place, because this video I'm going to show you 10 ways how to improve your accuracy in Beat Saber. This video will have tips for beginners as well as experienced players. Due to how limited Beat Saber Vanilla is, some tips in this video will require some mods. But don't worry, there will be enough tips without using any mods. Now, enough yapping, let's get to tip number 1, which is wrist and arm movement. Now, you've probably heard this many times from people to use more wrist, it makes it easier, But I'm here to tell you that it actually doesn't. You see, while using wrist is a lot easier, since these aren't muscles, it's still not always the most effective way to improve your accuracy. The best way to see this is the more wrist you use, the less muscle you have to control your wrist, and so also your saber. So it's actually crucial to get the right balance between wrist and arm. Now, for most people, just finding this balance and sticking with it is completely fine. But if you actually want to be as most effective as possible with your wrist and arm movement, you want to try and switch it during the map. Not to call myself the best player possible, but I try and use my wrist and arm depending on the map. For example, if I'm playing a speed map and there's a really slow section in the beginning, I'm going to use a lot more arm because that's not very stamina heavy. I can afford to use more arm. But when there's jumps coming in the map, I have to use a lot more wrist to make up for the faster movement. And specifically using a lot of arm in jumps isn't very effective, and your stamina will drain insanely fast. Moving on to tip number 2 is minimizing distractions. This is more of an issue with modded Beat Saber because the only information that vanilla shows is accuracy, multiplier, and combo. But in modded Beat Saber, there's actually an unlimited amount of statistics you can put in your game. However, this is not always a good thing. I definitely use more statistics than just vanilla Beat Saber, but I try to keep it as limited as possible, only to what's necessary. For example, some basic stuff is reduce debris. I think every single Beat Saber tips videos on YouTube are always telling you to turn reduce debris on. But a few things you might not know that I have is a mod called transparent walls. This makes it so that every wall in the game doesn't have this fancy graphic overlay over it, but it's just a wall. So if there's any bad mappers out there, I'm looking at you, Rage Tugboat, they might place nodes behind a wall, which can actually make you miss them if you don't see them coming. But with this mod, that's not possible. Another one I use is particle overdrive. Even if you have reduced debris on, there's still a shit ton of particles that fly around when you hit a node. But with this mod, you can actually lower it to whatever you want. I personally still like to have some particles, so I put them at 60%. But if you want, you can turn off all particles when you hit a node. To put it in simple terms, just because you can put something in your game doesn't mean you should. Figure out what's actually important for you to know how to improve and use those. Now, moving on to tip number 3 is play consistently. I have a lot of people always asking me, how do you survive all these nodes without pausing once? Simple terms, I don't have a life! No, but seriously, whenever people ask me how to improve stamina, I literally don't know what to say because there's nothing to improve stamina or like a life hack you can do. The only way to improve stamina is literally just to keep playing difficult maps that burn you out. Definitely find a balance what works for you though, because just playing fast maps your entire session is not going to do anything good. If you want some maps to improve your stamina on, I'll put some in the description down below. Now, transitioning smoothly to tip number 4 is pushing your limit. This kind of correlates to the last tip, but this is actually a really important one. Pushing your limit doesn't necessarily have to mean just stamina. This can be tech, speed tech, challenge, anything. The most important part is that you get comfortable with what you're playing. For example, if you're struggling to pass 9 stars, the only way to get to pushing to 9 stars is to play 9 stars. If you keep playing your 4, 5, 6, 7 stars, nothing is going to change. Obviously, don't play this over and over again all day long, but I'm saying at least get comfortable with it so you can actually move on. Now, the last few points, I've just been giving you information. But how do you actually act on it and improve your accuracy? Now, this goes perfectly with my next tip. Tip number 5 is using the practice tool. There's probably some other people that told you to do this, but it actually works really well. This works specifically well on a few maps where you just don't know how to pass this certain section. So when you keep failing on this certain section, you can go in the practice plugin and play it over and over again. Even just playing it again and again on 100% playback speed is fine. But if you really want to improve and actually understand the entire pattern, it's really useful to slow it down to actually know what you're doing. Because the more patterns you actually know and remember, the easier it becomes to pass other maps. Now, to take it a step further to tip number 6 is about replay reviewing. You can watch every replay of every single score you've uploaded on BeatLeader. You can do this either in game or on the website. And while you're on the website, next to the replay button, there's also a replay analyzer button, which is actually really complicated and I cannot tell you anything about it. But this button takes it even a step further. Other than just replaying normally and seeing what's going wrong, you can look exactly what's going wrong. If you're really interested in replay reviewing, that might be a good tool for you. But for most people, just looking at your normal replays is already going to help you so much. When you click on a replay, either in-game or on the website, it'll show you a bar of the entire timeline of the song. It will tell you exactly where you paused, you missed, you hit a wall, you hit a bomb. So you can actually look at those specific parts and see that you're like, for example, missing a note or hitting one with your other saber or something like that. There's also so many statistics about how each of your hand is doing. You can tell exactly if your right hand has a bit more underswing than your left, for example. There's actually so much you can do on this website, so I just urge you to play around with it a bit. Moving on to tip number 7 is to not practice fast songs. I can already hear you thinking, but Tibytes, you just told me to push my limit, blah, 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 blah. Yes, and you should, but it's also very important to improve your accuracy. And how do you improve your accuracy? By playing accuracy. Even years ago when I used to play only fast songs, I still did a few slower songs to actually learn and practice accuracy. Because no matter how fast the songs are that you're playing, there's always going to be some slow section in there, and that's really important to improve your accuracy. On average, each song has an intro, a drop, a middle bit, a drop, and an end. Now, it's inevitable that on the drops, where the most hardest parts are of the song, you're gonna drop accuracy. But that's okay if you increase your accuracy on the slower parts, so then you can make up for losing on the drop. So no matter how many times you practice these drops, you're always gonna lose accuracy on them. And if you don't increase your accuracy on the slower parts, when are you ever gonna increase your accuracy? Moving on to tip number 8 is changing your mindset. It's already a good rule of thumb to not think too much about these notes you're hitting and actually trying to improve every single note. Especially on fast songs, this is just gonna hurt your brain. What definitely works for me is to think like this on slower parts of the song. When there's a lot going on, like a fast drop or even a lot of techie patterns, I don't have the brain power to think about acting each one of them and also trying to hit them and also listening to the song, and there's just too much going on. Just playing around with it and getting a feel of it is already enough. But then on the slower sections, this is where it actually matters. Now there's only a few notes happening. You have the perfect brain power space to actually try and act good on these. So this is your chance to actually increase your accuracy. Every single time there's just one note, one note, one note, these are all free notes. There's literally nothing happening, and there's no excuse for you to hit under 110 on these. Now next is tip number 9, which is playing under pressure. This tip is especially important if you grind ranked. Picture this scenario. You're playing a rank map, and at some point halfway in the map, you get quite tired. So you pause, and then you look over to your score and you see that you were holding a really good score. Now, you know you're holding a good score and you cannot throw. This is actually going to freak you out. And because of this, a lot of people are just going to make stupid mistakes now. So it's really important that even though you looked at your score and you know it's good, that you don't freak out and you stay calm. Because the moment you start overthinking while playing, you're going to make stupid mistakes and you're going to miss. And on best case scenario, you lose a bunch of accuracy. What can help you overcome this though, is to play in a lot of tournaments. I don't know how many tournaments are happening nowadays, but if there are, you should definitely try and join them. Playing in tournaments is probably the most effective way to get over this. But another way to get over this, if you don't want to play in tournaments or maybe there's none happening, is to play multiplayer with a friend. In multiplayer, you aren't able to pause, so whatever score you get then is your score. There's no quick way to end the song and try again, because then your friend will also end the song and try again. So this will put some pressure on yourself to actually perform well. And lastly, as tip number 10, is to subscribe to me. I've made videos before about improving in Beat Saber and how to get mods in Beat Saber. And if you guys like this video, I'll definitely try and do more. So if any of these tips were useful to you, please leave a like down below and subscribe if you want to see more. If you think there's a tip that I missed, please put it down in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice day.